Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new, welcome. Today I am taking someone else's leftovers. I'm not sure if it was an unfinished quilt or if they're pieces that someone had left over after making a quilt. I took the pieces and I put a quilt top together. There are a couple of pretty stars in here and some other blocks that I do not recognize, but I had fun puzzling it all together. This is not a how-to video because your scraps and your leftovers will look different than mine, but I'll take you through how I puzzled this together and I got a quilt top, so let's get started. Here's what I had to start with in this little bag of leftovers, someone else's leftovers. There were two pretty stars, and there were quite a few of these blocks with the strip through the middle and the triangle in the corner. I haven't seen this block before. Here's the note in the bag. Maybe someone can figure this out. It was donated to me. And I picked this bag up at my local quilt guild. They were giving away fabric and these UFOs if somebody wanted to try to put them together. So I took this bag thinking it would be fun to try to puzzle these pieces together into a quilt top. There was a few extra pieces of fabric in there and some triangles that I did not end up using. The first thing I did is I put up some of the blocks on my design wall, and I ended up using 5 quilt blocks across and then tried to figure out where my star blocks were going to go. And as you can see, the stars are taller than those rectangles, so I needed to fill in with some extra fabric. And I just began by throwing things up. I didn't end up doing it exactly like I'm showing right here, but it kind of gives you an idea of how I was thinking about it as I went along. After getting the first row of blocks sewn together, I know how wide my quilt is going to be, and now I need to make the second row with this star a little bit taller, and all I needed was 2.5 inches. So I added a 2.5 inch strip. Actually, what I needed was 2 inches, but I know that I'm going to lose it in the seam, so I added a 2.5 inch strip. I added that to the bottom of these 2 blocks, and then I attached it to my star. I did the same thing with the next block. I added 2.5 inches to the bottom, and then as you can see, I have a blank area on the right, and I'm going to leave that blank until I get my third row together. And here's my third row. I did the same thing. I added 2.5 inches to the bottom of each of those blocks to make them tall enough for that star block. Now, since I have a blank area on the right, I am just going to piece together some of those leftover chunks of fabric, and I will have more than enough to fill in on the right of those 2 rows. Once I have my 2 rows sewn together, I will know exactly how big I need that chunk of fabric to be. And what I did is I just sewed them together, and then I trimmed off the excess, and I'm going to leave the excess on the right side of my quilt, and I'm going to wait until all my rows are together, and then I will trim that off. All I have to do now is get all my 5 rows of blocks together, and I will have a little bit excess on the right there where I filled in that blank spot. And when I have all my rows together, I can trim that little bit of fabric off and everything will be lined up. And here it is. The quilt top is all ready to go, and I will quilt it and give it to the Quilting Guild for a donation. I think it turned out really pretty. I hope this inspired you to use what you have or use someone else's leftovers and have a peaceful day of sewing. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.